Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there and welcome back to Cognitive. This is episode number 145, Pestilence, yay! Brought to you by yours truly, Gemma. And what a week, we got a lot of stuff. Let's get right into it. You can see in the show notes, I have a lovely picture of my car's speedometer. But if you look at the top right corner, you will see the numbers 109. What is that about? It's been the temperature. So this has been a pretty rock and roll week after the floods and hurricanes last week. I have to tell you, there is nothing if there isn't fun. We've had a crazy, crazy fun week. And, of course, I had to tempt fate by saying, bring on the locusts last week. So, no, they brought on the pestilence. So that's been flavoring a lot of my week. But let us roll along to say, just so you know, I will not add you to any of my follower groups currently on Instagram or Facebook due to all the robo accounts out there. And the question has arisen, but what about Threads? No, I'm not joining Threads. Why? Well, I was on Twitter for a heartbeat, and then Twitter got weird years ago as far as I'm concerned, and it's only gotten weirder since. And I just don't need it. I got used to not having Twitter. There's no reason for me to add another social media account. But Gemma, what about the popularity of this podcast? Oh, come on, man. Seriously? I don't think so. That is, the podcast will sink or swim as it does. And there are a lot of factors that influence that. But here's a big one. I'm not going to add to my social media presence. I'm doing just fine. I'm grateful for those of you who know about me, who know about the podcast, who know about the fiber retreat. Please spread the word. I'm really grateful. But I am not going to throw myself into this. I am a full-time psychologist, kids. I don't have the room for this. I am running a farm that is slowly aging out. I don't have the room for this. And besides, I have to do so much knitting and crafting. I don't have time for that. Having said that, on to the warm thanks. Chris, I just put her whole quote in because I thought it was great. She said, I'm so tickled to hear you're watching Thermae Romae Nova. Sick. Should be Novae, but hey, it's okay. It's hard to read the print on the screen if you don't speak Latin. She says, isn't it goofy? I watched it a few months back. Yes, it is. It is a very weird blast because it's a very interesting concept. The author has determined that baths have a huge cultural importance in Japanese culture, and they represent a lot of things in the culture, including prosperity, stability, communality in a healthy way. And so she clearly got interested in the Roman concept of the bath. And so she has a Roman architect of baths from about, she dates it in the last episode at 126 AD. I'm sure she's right. And he keeps falling into bathtubs and waking up in Japan. And mostly it's modern Japan, but not always. And then he takes Japanese bathing innovations back to Rome. So that's nice. I think I would tell the author to calm down and recognize that great minds think alike, and I really think the Romans made this up on their own. But it is a kind of interesting tribute to what the Japanese have added to this kind of behavior and how they look at it. And it's interesting, too, because the Japanese and the Romans have very similar ideas about how to use a bath and maintaining hygiene. There are clearly some things that the Japanese author thinks the Romans are doing that are kind of twisted or unhygienic. And you have to remember plumbing. and the ability to use a motor to force water down a pipe is the big difference. Although she gives a lot of space to how both cultures move water without engines when they have to. So it's very, very interesting. I would like to tell this lady that no, the Romans didn't need the Japanese to invent really good baths, but the Japanese have all the advantages when it comes to things like moving the water via pumps and engines. But it's great, and it really makes you want to go and explore Japanese spa culture. Well, if you're me, it does. That's my kind of thing anyway. So anyway, Chris says, if you're into anime, you might like, okay, forgive me, Japanese speaker, Shokugeki no Soma, which the English title is Food Wars. It's also goofy and weird, but also really enjoyable and funny. Highly recommend. So when I get the chance, I'm going to go look up Food Wars because it does sound like fun. In the meantime, I also want to thank everybody who's supporting CFR 2023. I just got a really cool note from Raspberry Studios, the one who makes the Chatelaines. She says she went overboard and is sending us a lot of stuff. Yes! And she's sending us coupons. Yes! And business cards. I have to say, I'm very excited about that. She seems very excited because I said if she came, I would simply admit her as my guest. So she's being extremely generous, and I'm excited to sort of show off my Chatelaines and introduce the people who aren't familiar with them to the concept. It's a very nice thing. In the meantime, I really want to thank Steffi Joe, who has quietly, as is her way, and in the background, taken on the role of fact-checking the information I'm posting, and that is not, believe me when I say that, that is not criticism or sarcasm, that is absolute gratitude. Steffi Joe is the person we owe a lot of the accuracy to. She keeps roaming through and saying in a private email, hey, I think you missed this link or something. I am so grateful for this. I am not going to hide the fact that it's been a crazy summer. I did not expect to do a CFR, and that would have been okay, and it is okay. In fact, it's great. But on top of it, a lot of things on the job went a little hectic and crazy because I had to make some major changes in my scheduling and such, and working on getting holidays and all that. And I have had a few things going wrong around the farm, plumbing issues, things like that. I have been so swamped this summer. I never saw this coming. And honest to Pete, if it wasn't for somebody in the background kind of fact-checking my work on this project on CFR, I can't imagine what I'd be saying to you all right now. So I just have to tell you, if you find I've made a mistake, you should feel free to tell me. But when you see Steffi Joe in November, you have to really give her warm hugs and support because she is saving my bacon over and over. So thank you so much, Steffi Joe. I am so grateful for that. It only hit me recently that, every now and then I'm getting this really important email from you and going, ooh. Okay, speaking of the Cognitive Fiber Retreat 2023, all the info is linked in the show notes. There is a whole thread on Ravelry, in fact. But if you go to Ravelry, to the show notes for episode 145, actually about 142 through 145, you will see the link. It says all info is right here, and here is a link. And it links you to the info thread on Ravelry. You can go to the Cognitive Podcast group on Ravelry, and you will just see the info thread. It's got a sticky to keep it at the top. If you're looking at this show from the blog, cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, you will also see in the show notes the link to the info thread on Ravelry. You really have to go to that thread if you want the latest update. So, having said that, let me remind you that the fee, $35, non-refundable, is due on September 1st. What happens on September 2nd? Well, basically, I just open it up. That we're going for 50 people, and I expect to get that. Now, currently we have 53. I'm great. If all 53 pay, I'm great. You guys all pay, and we'll all go there. We'll all have 53. So I'm telling you right now, even if you think you're on the wait list, you're not, but that's okay. You get you get a few days of grace after September 1st because I know I've been confusing. But right now, if your name is on those 53 names on the list, on the info thread on Ravelry, you're coming to this as long as you pay me. Now, having said that, there will be no payments at the door. If you show up and hand me $35, I will ask you to leave because we don't want to do that. we don't want to handle cash at that point. That's for the vendors to do. It is too much confusion. I really don't want to do that. I never have, and I never will. So what's going to happen? Right now, I've got 53 people. So on September 2nd, I'm expecting a few people will never show up again. That happens. So I'm thinking we're going to have 50 to 53 people. So if somebody you know pops up and says, hey, I really want to go to this, let me tell you something. If they give me the money on September 2nd, they're going to get it on the paid list. That we're taking the first 53 people who show up at max. And if people are on the list and they haven't paid, they're going to get bumped. Because I do want to keep a limit on this because there is a fire code in the hotel. We can only have so many people walking through that room. And no, we are not taking outsiders. You have to pay and attend because we tried it before and we had a lot of shoplifting. So we won't be doing that again. I want to know the people in that room. Oh, I know. What a drag. Anyway, having said that, the vendors are all go as far as I know. But the new exciting thing is Brenda posted on the info thread, and you should go and look at it, because she posted a picture of the incredibly adorable bag, the project bag that is being made to go with the Sea Glass colorway by Dizzy Blondes. And she's also posted the link to Etsy. Now, this is all on Etsy, and you can get this in different combinations. There are different size bags. There is a design for a shawl. So, like, you can get the yarn. You can get the yarn in the shawl. You can get the yarn, the shawl, in the bag, or any combination. You can get a big bag. You can get a little bag. All right? So you really need to go look at all that on Etsy. However, what you need to know, Brenda has told us that she wants to reduce the cost for us. And she's talking about the additional cost that PayPal and Etsy add on when she sells this stuff through them, or when she and Laura sell this stuff through them. So she says, please go over and read the Etsy entry first. Figure out what you want, and then contact her personally. She will ship it to you without all the Etsy fees and the PayPal fees. She wins, you win. So her name is Good Stuff. You can see all this in the show notes on the section where you see the picture of the bag and the yarn. This is so cute. I'm really, really happy and impressed. And so you can go look at all that on the info thread, and the relevant information is there. All right. Meanwhile, yes, the mini skein swap is still on. Some interesting treats coming in that respect. The goodie bags, I have not been working on them. I still want to see if I can hit the drop spindle people. Are people interested in drop spindling at Cognitive, at CFR? I'd be happy to teach it. Oh my gosh, we're like crammed with people who could teach it. So if you're interested in drop spindling stuff in the goodie bags, do let me know. I apologize too. There's going to be random sniffing in this because I've had an acid reflux attack, and that kicks off post-nasal drip. So I really apologize. I'm going to try and edit it out, but I realize there are going to be sniffs in here. Meanwhile, what is on my hooks and needles? Well, I have finished nothing, but oh, I am a happy, happy camper. First of all, I had a lot of time to knit this week, but let me tell you the stash toss. The stash toss is at 11 skeins in, because I just bought 3 new ones from Knit Picks for my second stranded pattern, and 48 skeins out. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. You know, we still have, 37 net loss. That's a lot to take out of your stash, and I can tell in my stash. I can see the difference. Now, meanwhile, I was making those 2 pairs of shorts from Simplicity Pattern 8558. This is a contemporary pattern, ours. And I was waiting for my sewing machine's return. So the good news is Trusty is back. I took her down today and tried a new sewing machine guy who turns out to be a guy we knew from vacuum services we had done 20 years ago. And he was great. He was absolutely great. So Trusty is sitting here as we speak, shrouded in her carrier. And I have not put her back together yet because I wanted to clean out around her, because that was also where I had big blobs of Minerva's fur waiting to be spun. But she is back, and I am so happy. Meanwhile, I have made enormous progress, happily, on the Llama Love sweater, the single llama version. You can see a picture. It's turned sideways because I wanted you to see the llamas parading across the neckline. Oh, how I love this. Every day I change the way I'm going to finish this, but I think at this point I'm going to put the blue llamas with maybe a row of the pink hearts near the waistline. The blue llamas are not very tall, but I want to get them in. And I was going to put the big red hearts, and then realized, I don't think I need the big red hearts. I don't know if I like them that much. But I really, really like the blue llamas, and I want to get them in. And on the cuffs of the sleeves, I will probably have blue llamas. But that's where we are right now. I am, oh my gosh, it's supposed to be 18 inches from the armpit to the bottom hem, which is very generous on me. But I suspect I'm at about, I forget now. I think I'm at 10 inches below the armpit. So I'm booking right along on that. She gives you a 2-inch hem on this. I usually do a 4-inch hem. I really want my ribbing to collect around my waist and let the looser stitches above it blouse over the ribbing. I like to wear my sweaters that way. It's an East Coast thing. In the meantime, you may notice I finished the stranded knitting on that very quickly. I didn't expect to, but then I did take a lot of it off because I didn't like the look, as I explained at length last episode. But you know what? I got really, really hooked on the stranded knitting. Now, I have done my share of Fair Isle. I have done hats. I have done scarves. I have done cowls. But this on the neckline of a sweater was the most Fair Isle fun I have ever had. Some of you will remember that on the Romule sweater, it might have been last year's in fact, I had this lighter green around the neckline on one of the Romule sweaters, and I realized it looked like I was putting a Fair Isle collar on. So I took some colored thread I had lying around, and I experimented with very, very small patterns from from Mary Jane Mucklestone's book of Fair Isle motifs, which I can't recommend enough. And I really liked that. And I was surprised how easy it was with incredibly minimalist stranded work to jazz up that neckline. And I had no idea that when you do this in the round with a good pattern like the one I'm using by Megan Regan, I had no idea how much fun this is and how great it is to watch it emerge. The long and the short of it is I decided to do the Superstition sweater by the same designer, Bad Wolf Girl Knits, alias Megan Regan, because I just want to do more. And I really wanted to do this because it has purple cats around the neckline. Now, obviously they're black cats, but since she was using a black background, she did them in purple. You get the idea. It's a Halloween sweater, and I really would like an autumnal sweater with an autumnal theme on it. So I just decided it could have been leaves, it could have been jack-o'-lanterns. No, I wanted black cats. And this comes in a collection called, I think, the Fall Collection. You can find this on Ravelry. And it's great because what she learned is that she has a basic way of doing neck increases for an adult sweater. And she ends up with a pattern at the widest point that is a repeat of 16 stitches before you separate the sleeves, and below the sleeves she uses 20 stitches. All right. And I was looking at this, and I looked at the Fall Collection. And the Fall Collection does not have a size 41 inch, which I really like. And yet, the Llama Love does. And the double Llama Love does not. It has a 45. That's the closest you can get after like 36 or 38. I forget what the next one down is. So I looked at the Fall Collection, and I looked at the color work charts, and I said, but these are basically the same dimensions as the charts for the Llama Love. And I realized, yes, they are. So I did a little math in my head. Now, if I was doing her sweater with 45 inches, I would have 18 cats around my neck. But just by doing some simple math, I will have 17 cats. Coincidentally, the cats are the same dimensions in width of stitches as the llamas. Guess how many llamas I have around my neck? That's right, 17. So I would tell you, if you're using Megan Regan's patterns, you want to look at things like this. You want to really think about it. But the thing she has really taught me is I really want to design some of my own, because I really could take her chart dimensions and simply plug in repeats of anything I like. And that's going to bring me back to Mary Jane Mucklestone's fantastic books of motifs. But I will come back to that. But you can see in the picture, I have this Cascade yarn. This cracks me up. I can't believe I'd forgotten about this. I bought this, I believe, at my first stitches, which would have been like 2009. I have to look in my stash. But I bought a ton of it from Webs. Yay, Webs, I love you so much. And it's going to be hard not to be able to shop you except for online now that there's no stitches. But anyway, I digress. But I bought a ton of it because in those days I believed I was going to make a sweater. It's a little pathetic that I didn't really make a sweater till about probably about 2014, and it wasn't very good, and I wasn't committed, and I was trying to do vests and blah, blah, blah. But now I make a lot of sweaters, and I'm digging through old stash, and there it was. I have like 1,500 yards of this stuff, and it's very old Cascade, and it's just 220 worsted weight wool. Yay! Yeah, I don't think the quality is the same anymore. You've heard me say that. It's very dusty. When I'm handling it, it's kind of sticky with dust, even though I had it in plastic, but dust apparently gets through. So I just whipped out that because that yarn was sitting at my feet in the box, cardboard box of Doomy Doom Doom, which should be empty by now, right? But no, I keep putting new things into it. I want to get it out of there because it's not aesthetically pleasing, and yet it is a good place to keep your current big projects when you keep them in your study. Anyway, so I started the Superstition sweater. I gadgeted the numbers around to get a 41-inch version, and I did the collar, and then I did the German short rows. And now I am waiting for my colored skeins from Knit Picks, which is really fun. I mean, it's bizarre to say I bought all this yarn in 2009 for some idiotically low price compared to what it would be now in better quality. And then you go to Knit Picks and you just go, yeah, okay, wool of the Andes for the contrast. And I'm paying something idiotic there, like $3 for 200 yards. And it's I bought 3 skeins following her directions. And then I'm using the white from the Llama Love project that I have left over to do part of the motifs to. So very, very exciting. And I'm really looking forward to getting this one past the stranded color work. But I realize it is really fun to have these collars going in the background. Okay, let's see. So I give you the links to the books I've been using and the video on German short rows. And the books are Mary Jane Mucklestone's 200 Fair Isle Motifs and Alice Starmore's Book of Fair Isle Knitting. Starmore also has a book of just straight up motifs, I believe, but I haven't bought it yet, but it's coming. The Pennsylvania Dutch Embroidery, I Dream of the Day. Haven't gotten to it yet, but I am booking respectably through my other projects, and I am pretty satisfied. I'm really happy to be on the popcorn knitting on my big llama sweater because I really needed that. I didn't want to make any more socks. I just feel a little burned out on socks, and so it is so nice to just be cranking out a sweater again. I have to admit, if I had known how much I was going to love sweaters, it's probably a good thing because at this point I wouldn't be able to fit in the house anymore. I'd have so many of them. They are just endless fun for me. And I'm still waiting to get approved for my Romuald vacation because I have got a boatload of worsted weight that wants to be sweaters and wants to be a wild, untamed Romuald sweater. Dizzy Blondes, I have a huge amount of Minerva to work through, but I'm not spinning right now. So let's get on to a strategy. Ben Franklin, I was reading through Poor Richard, as you know, I've been going through it. And one of the themes that really jumps out, and this is not straight up cognitive behavioral or dialectical behavioral therapy, and this is probably why it interested me, but Franklin lives in a very different world than we live in. And I think we forget that. And I think 21st century America has become very individualistic and oriented towards being separationist. And I think you can read this. Every time I read the threads on Facebook or Instagram, there's always people telling you how to get rid of those toxic people in your life. That is a very 21st century American way to look at people. And Franklin, living in the 18th century, goes in a different direction. He talks about cooperation. Now, the interesting thing is the ideas aren't that far removed, that Franklin has to talk about how to cooperate because he's having problems with the toxic people too. And his attitude, though, is you do have to get along with them. I think the people who did best at various times during the COVID quarantine especially really worked hard on cooperating. And I think it was like this worldwide experiment of can humans work together to a common goal? We have done this in the past. I know there was one meme that went by talking about the ozone hole that was detected in the 70s, and basically the world got rid of aerosol sprays that caused the ozone hole. And you don't hear about it anymore. And it's because we fixed it. It was a worldwide project. There have been several others like that. And yet in the pandemic we failed, at least America did, because America had just basically a rampant individualist running the government, and Congress and the Supreme Court were following him. Well, they were trying not to, but we lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's an American tragedy. Okay, and so, Franklin has the same problems we have, but Franklin believes that you solve them with cooperation, and I have to tell you, I'm on Franklin's team here, that I grew up in an age of block parties and community projects, and we don't see a lot of those anymore. LA is terrible on that. The LA neighborhoods, people really don't know each other and don't cooperate. Anyway, on to the Franklin. He says, love your enemies, for they tell you your faults. Now that's important because he's not saying your enemies are toxic and you need to shed them. He's saying, basically, they're going to tell you things about you. You should listen. Now, when you're taking that one to heart, you have to realize you don't take them literally. So if somebody comes up and says, I know how you are, you're so, name it, bad thing. You don't want to say, oh, I believe her with no criticism and no question. She is right. I am terrible. You don't do that. But what you should be doing is thinking, is there any truth? Because your enemy is going to give you a distorted version of yourself. But they are fastening on to some perceived wrong or injury. And it does behoove you to think, did I wrong them? Did I injure them? And remember, you are responsible for yourself. So even if they are your enemy, they are themselves, you are yourself. You don't become the enemy. So they're aggressive, and you don't say, so they are my enemy. So an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You say, okay, I may need them later, but I'm going to keep them at arm's length because they're aggressive towards me. But you say, are they reporting anything I need to know? And I would tell you that's a valuable thing, and Franklin is onto it. But the interesting idea there for me is you're listening to your enemy. That in Franklin's world, there's kind of a communal sense that you're listening to all the people around you. You don't just shove them away and give them a label. You are actually paying attention to what they're trying to tell you. Why do I care about this? Well, I don't know about the rest of the world, but it's really obvious American politics are very polarized. And that is dripping down into the other levels of our society, that nobody knows how to negotiate or compromise. Instead, people are encouraging each other to take a strong stand and deny everybody else any reason or right. And the answer is you can be correct and still show respect and still acknowledge that the other person has a point of view. You simply do not agree with it. Your disagreeing does not make them unilaterally wrong. It means you and they disagree. Now, we could all agree there are things that aren't going to be negotiable. Racism is the one, classism, ageism. We don't want to negotiate that. That's just wrong. That it's just ridiculous. You can't go around being racist. Again, we have to be communal. We have to live together. And so that means there's got to be a lot of forgiveness. There's got to be a lot of compromise. There's got to be a lot of negotiation. You can't simply say, I am right, and I have permission to say all those people, name your race, religion, color, culture, whatever, all those people are wrong. That is kind of idiotic. But I liked another one from Franklin on the topic of communality. He says, he that drinks his cider alone, let him catch his horse alone. So in other words, having lived in Britain with the pub culture, remember that Americans in Franklin's age also have the pub culture. So they all go to drink at night. All the men go over to the pub and have their cider, have their drink. If you ever tried to catch a runaway horse, and if you have ever enjoyed your ale in a pub with all your local friends, you're going to understand that one. But it's a very wise statement. You cannot simply be isolationist. You can't fly the introvert flag and say, I am all alone, I am all alone, and then expect help when you have a really obvious need that's going to take more than you. So Franklin talks about cooperation and communality. He has a worldview of we do need other people. I can't speak for all my listeners here, but living in America in the 21st century, I'm here to tell you we could use a lot more of this kind of attitude. Instead of just slamming a label on somebody, ask why they're saying what they're saying. And as one of my colleagues points out, that comes right out of Marcus Aurelius, that the Stoic emperor of Rome who writes the Meditations that are one of the classic hits of Stoic philosophy. He would say the same thing. He would say, you need to hear what the people are saying about you. By the way, if you know anything about the history of Rome, those guys who didn't know what the people were saying about him, Caligula, didn't go well. On to the fluffy books. The Bridgerton books. I did finish the Rokesby series, which is the prequel series to the main Bridgerton books that are being featured on Netflix. I'm living for the next series of Bridgerton on Netflix, I have to admit it. Meanwhile, one of my favorite authors, Garth Nix, came out with a book called Frog Kisser. I would read Garth Nix's grocery list. And so I have just started Frog Kisser, and it is everything I want it to be. If you have not read Nix, may I recommend you go to his Sabriel series, which scared me when I first read it. It was so original and really just fascinating and inventive. I just love the guy's works. So I've got another one to read. Yay, Frog Kisser. Something I really like. Well, I just got a copy in my hot little hands of Mary Jane Mucklestone's other book, 150 Scandinavian Motifs. Oh, I love it so much. So much. It arrived yesterday, and I lost about 2 hours yesterday wandering through it, making up designs in my head. Why? Well, I opened it. First thing I saw were what I would call distelfink. Characters that could come right out of drawings, motifs that could come right out of Pennsylvania German hex signs and distelfink, Pennsylvania German art. I was so shocked. And of course it could. I mean, Pennsylvania Germans are, not that far away from Scandinavia in their origins, But it was so great. And I wandered through and I just saw running deer, which looked like many of the motifs I learned in Scotland when I was painting pottery many years ago now, like 20 years ago. I just loved it. There was so much good in that book, and it just really blows my collection of stranded knitting motifs out of the water. It just gives me so many more to work with. It's a fantastic book. You can open it, and in the first few chapters, you can simply learn how to knit. Everything you need to learn is right there. Would I do that? No. But really, good knitting books always feel this need to be encyclopedic that way. And Mucklestone does a fine job with all that material, and she throws in how to steek and makes it look unscary and non-threatening. I'm not there yet. I keep telling myself I want to steek, but I really just haven't found the moment where I wanted to steek. So at any rate, I've got to say, the instructions in this, the photography, the motifs, everything is knitted up. You can see it in real time. She gives you lots of variations, lots of good ideas. Unlike her other book of motifs, she gives you a lot of combinations. This has its pluses and its minuses. In the original book of Stranded Knitting Motifs that I have the note earlier in the show notes too as well, the link, Mucklestone has a really nice way of organizing them, and they get increasingly larger, wider, and taller. She's a little more random in this book about that because she's trying to show you how to match motifs together. So you will find a slight confusion of different size motifs together because she's trying to show you these would work together. This is a pretty minor drawback because in the very beginning of the book, she has just a beautiful dictionary of all the motifs with their pages and their motif number and how they occur, and shows them in clusters together. You can see photos of all of it. So that really helps you locate what you want. I'm very excited because she has a very cute one of cats. Although I have to say I really like the cat motif in the Superstition sweater even better. But she has a very cute one of what I would think of as Spitz type dogs with the tail over the back. Since I was an elk hound breeder, you know I'm going to do that if I can. And it's just got the distal fink type things of people dancing with hearts in the air between them. Birds, stags, moose, you name it. It's just fantastic. I love this book. If you're going to do stranded knitting and you want to do any kind of designing, or if, like me, you're doing stranded knitting and you say, I want to improvise a little for some reason, oh, please get Muckle Stone's 2 books on motifs. Please, you will love them. I have to also tell you about Dr. Teal's, like the color teal, plural. His Epsom salt bath formulas. You can get them on Amazon, but frankly, you can also get them just in any CVS. They're not that expensive. I have to be careful which ones I get because they do put lavender and eucalyptus in them, both of which I'm allergic to, which is tragic, let me tell you. However, when you are sick, when you feel lousy, let me tell you, there is nothing like an Epsom salt bath to revitalize you. And I got to do it twice this week because we have a very deep bathtub and I was very sick. And I have to tell you, I have come right back to, it is astonishing how great these are. It's absolutely astonishing. So I want you to know my preferred brand when I can find it is Dr. Teal's, which just comes in these blue and white bags, and you can get it at CVS if you want it. Put a lid on it. Well, the tea tastings are on hold, but I have a large order of teas arriving from the peach tea sale that Plum Deluxe put on, and I told you all about this last time. I had to put the teas on hold because I was worried that it was contributing to my acid reflux, which is what I'm going to talk about next. And that is the blather. And the blather is, oh, why did I tempt fate by saying bring on the locust last week? Because what got brought on was pestilence. About the time the floods were hitting, I started having gastric pain that I know is acid reflux. And for those of you who think acid reflux is about too much acid, wrong. When you age, it's about too little acid. And you do have to know which one you're experiencing or you could really make your life miserable. To put it mildly, I got really, really sick Wednesday night. And I don't see patients till noon on Thursday, but I was still so debilitated at noon I couldn't see patients. So what happened instead was, well, I'm not going to go into the unpleasant details, but I got extremely dehydrated. And Thursday afternoon, I was literally crawling. I was so out of energy. I was just so depleted. And I was afraid to drink water, and my throat was burning all day long, and my gut was burning, and there was no relief from it, I thought. So basically, I just had to get empty. And when that process was finished, it took like 12 hours. It was one of those horrible nights. But I woke up slithering on the floor and decided it was time for an Epsom salt bath, which was a hugely brilliant decision. That really just readjusted me. I think because the magnesium through my skin gave me electrolyte, made me feel so much better. So the end of all this was I did a 48, actually, was it 48 hours? It was more like 60-hour fast because I couldn't get anything down. And the burning was so painful. I did manage to drink water, but for a long time I could only do it in like one sip every few minutes. So that was kind of rough. So I was really debilitated by that. However, there's always a silver lining. And what it was that bath, which suddenly jolted me back to feeling like I wasn't going to drop dead. And I crawled out of the bathtub and went over to my beautiful new rocker that my beloved gave me for Christmas. And there were my 2 crocheted blankets, the temperature blanket and blankets blanket. And they were just perfect. I wrapped myself in them, and because I couldn't lie down, I slept upright in the chair. And then I woke up on the floor lying on my right side, which apparently I can do when I have acid, but I can't lie on my left side. It makes the acid just go crazy. So I fell asleep on the floor on my right side and became human again, but was still too wiped out Friday to see patients. So there's a lovely picture of me, and I'm sitting on the floor at the foot of my bed, wrapped in my crocheted blankets. The temperature blanket is around my neck, and the blankets blanket is over my knees. And you can see I am clutching one of my other shawls, and I keep forgetting the name of this shawl, which makes me crazy, the Clapetee. And I'm clutching one of my other shawls, the Clapetee, because I was also using that for warmth and pillowing. And I have to tell you, if you're going to get sick, one of the great things in this world is being a crafter. I have never been so grateful for those blankets and that shawl because, number one, I knew any of them could be washed clean and we're not going to show stains or anything else. And number two, when you feel lousy, I think Lisa Souza wrote to me and called it a whoobie. There's nothing like a whoobie. There's nothing like this thing that is so dear to you in a way your normal blankets are not. So there I am looking kind of pathetic sitting on the floor. I'm very recovered as I write this. In fact, Saturday I did see patients. I had 4 patients, and the good news was I had 2 in the morning and then a 3-hour break and then 2 more. By those last 2, I was just barely making it, but I did see patients. And I will be seeing them tomorrow on Tuesday. By the way, it is 9:06 p.m. on Monday, August 28th, as I record this, 2023. So I've made it to my weekend on my hands and knees and realized this is my last weekend of Sunday, Monday weekend. From here on, after September 1st, it's Saturday, Sunday weekends. And I thought I was recovering, and I became aware when I was lying around because I couldn't do much else. I did manage to knit. It took me until Friday night to be able to knit because I was just unable to really keep going, even just knitting, potato chip knitting. But I kind of came aware on Sunday that there were things that needed to be repaired and I had to get on it. And so Sunday I took myself out and decided I could eat something, but I'm eating in smaller amounts, which is good. And I went to Lazy Dog Cafe, and there's a picture of the menu. And there's a picture of what I had. You can't see it on the menu, but I had the Chinese chicken wraps from the appetizer list. And that you can see in the background, there's 4, I think they're crispy deviled eggs, a little bit of brown sugar on the bacon chunks sitting upright in it, and breading on the eggs. So I doubt I'll do that again, but I did decide for the sake of the energy and the eggs, I was going to do this. I have to tell you, that Chinese chicken wrap, those were the best I've ever had. They give you 4 romaine lettuce spears, and you think, that's not enough, but they give this humongous amount of chicken. It was fabulous. I only got through about half the chicken, but I ate all the lettuce, and they have a little pickled cucumber salad in the middle of that with a little dish of plum sauce. I learned something this week, and that is that when you eat fermented foods with rice, or with any starch, it actually decreases the glycemic index by almost 50%. There was no rice in this, but there was a little bit of breading, as you can see, on those 2 sliced eggs. And I think there were water chestnuts in there. I'm not sure if they would count as a starch, but anyway, I ate it and I felt great. I had to leave half the chicken, but it was so nice, and I haven't been to Lazy Dog in literally years. And they used to have a tuna sashimi that I loved, and they don't do it anymore. But boy, their current menu, I can't wait to go back and try some of their small plates. It was fantabulous. The reason I did this, the context for being over there, which is over far away from home on the other side of the Santa Clarita Valley from us, was I wanted to get my old iPhone repaired. And I want it to be a Christmas present for my son because we want to limit his phone use, but at the same time, he's old enough to have a smartphone. And so I wanted to get this repaired for years. The battery was out. It's got a Mophie charger. If you don't know what Mophie is, I don't know if they're even still around, but what they did that was wonderful was they made these chargers, and the chargers add battery to your phone, that the charger has a battery in it as well. So you charge your phone, and when your phone charges, then it flips over and starts charging the Mophie protector. So it really extends the life of an iPhone. Why do I care? The iPhone 6S that I was getting renovated, first of all, it's going to go away. That you won't be able to get any repairs. It's so old now. It's their oldest model that they will still service. So that's going to go away. But it was a great phone. It just has very limited memory in it. It has like 16 megs. My current phone has 256. I love memory in my phone. That's the thing I really need. But it's a nice phone. It did the job for me for years. A very reliable phone. I dropped it. It had a cracked screen for literally years, and I still used it, and it did fine. I got the screen repaired, and then I upgraded when the first SE came out, a move I've never regretted. But I kept the 6S, and I kept the Mophie box for it, and I'm really, really delighted. So I took it in. And for $69, they basically gave me a fresh battery, and it works like it's brand new. And really, that's enough to be going on for the person who will be using it. So I'm very happy, and that put me at the mall with nothing to do for an hour, so, lazy dog. In the meantime, my birthday is coming, I'm happy to tell you, and the gifts have been arriving. That is where I got the Mucklestone book. Oh my goodness, Quantum Quadrat really came through for me. She sent me a beautiful watercolor type painting mug, which I have shown before. And I've shown, there's a set of 4 of them. And I've shown 2 of them, I think, in various photos. So now I've got number 3 of the 4. And she sent me 100 watercolor postcards, which I love. I have wanted so much. I love postcards anyway, and I'm just looking for excuses to send postcards. So if you are near and dear to me and beloved and saying nice things to me and you want a postcard, you should let me know. And I will watercolor paint you a postcard. God only knows what will be on it because I haven't had a chance to get back to Andrea Nelson's class, but I'm still messing around with watercolor and just having fun. Oh yes, and my older sister sent me a dog vacuum. This is why we have older siblings. I really had put the vacuum on the list so I would remember to buy it for next year's shedding season, but if she wants to send it, it's a beautiful thing. We will be glad to have it. Oh, speaking of the dogs, there's a lovely picture of Captain. She is in the captain's chair. No, I am in the captain's chair. That is actually my very comfortable chair my husband bought for me years ago as a Christmas present. A lovely, thick office chair. But that is her captain's chair. That is my love seat. She likes to get on it because half of it is blocked by old knitting and quilting projects, but she likes to curl up on the half that is exposed, as you can see. So there is Captain looking soulfully at the camera. People have wondered about her nose. It is a weird form of limited leukemia that dogs get. And it just is what it is. It isn't hurting her in any way. It is limited to the nose, that it does not affect them in any other way. And the vet put her on horrendous meds for it. And when I looked it up and researched it and said, wait, this isn't hurting her? No, it's not. She digs with her nose. We can't keep it healed. We keep trying. But she won't give up on her nose. And the vet, meanwhile, is like, give her steroids, give her this. No, it's not really that healthy for her. We just have a pink-nosed dog. And we try to keep her out of the sun because that makes things worse. And we try to let it heal, but she's really not going to go for it. In the meantime, the Hub's date, well, the Hub's in the Sun. The Sun is back at school, and he's taking one college class on trig online in the evenings, and it's really intense. He's really learning what college is like, but I like it. I like the new, more mature version of him trying to get time management under better control, as everybody is at his age. He is in 11th grade, but he will be 18 this March. Meanwhile, my Hubs spent a few days making me chicken broth, and honestly, if he hadn't, I think I'd be dead. I was so dehydrated. But he showed up. He was the hero with the broth, and he's the one who got me back onto food by putting an egg in the broth and scrambling it in the broth so that I was getting some more nutrition than just the broth. However, I have to tell you, this is why you make bone broth. We went through most of my bone broth supply, but we have another roasting chicken in the fridge, and I simply cannot wait to make more bone broth because I always think, oh, it's been sitting in there for weeks, I'm not using it. And then you have something like this where you just can't be grateful enough for it. In the meantime, I started on what I'm thinking of as Project G. And you will find a horrifying collage of pictures in the show notes of our garage. That's not all of it. I'm standing in the laundry area, which is also a train wreck. But you can see we have a little problem with trash in the garage, with old boxes. And I just decided I'd had enough of that. And then I thought, well, it's so big, and well, and my husband's way of handling things like this, he would take a whole day, blah, blah, blah. No, I can't really afford that. But what I did instead was I walked into the garage and I said, if I could get rid of the boxes, everything else would look so much better. Now, I'm not going to get rid of all of them because we do need them. We use them for various things. But as you can see, we've got dozens that we don't need there, and we're not going to use. And I noticed when I went through them that some of them are so dried out that they almost disintegrate if you try to break them down. So I went into an older section on the top picture on the right next to the big file cabinet, and I said 5 boxes. I'm going to break down 5 boxes and put them in my car. And that's what I did. I broke down 5 boxes. And then I came home and said, whoa. I put them in the car, by the way, and I took them down with Trusty, the sewing machine, to get Trusty repaired. And I found a few different big dumpsters. I didn't want to load them all into one dumpster because I don't think it's fair to take up someone else's dumpster. But I thought all these industrial dumpsters, they can take 1 box. So I went to a few different dumpsters, dropped off a box in each dumpster, and dropped off Trusty and came home feeling good. So good that I broke down 5 more boxes. And I took these out and I looked in our trash can, and lo, it was actually fairly empty this week. I don't know why. So I started putting them in the trash can. And then tonight I broke down 5 more and just stored them in a corner near the laundry area and said, when I get a chance, those will go into our car. I will take them down to the dumpsters again next time I go down to the Santa Clarita Valley or up to the Antelope Valley. But this is Project G, because I thought, oh my God, how will I ever get all that reduced to manageable? And then I realized, I really have to focus on the boxes. There's a lot of other stuff. There's paper trash on the floor, like stuffing, padding that came in boxes and all that. And I thought, no, I am not going to touch that stuff. What I am doing are the boxes, because I have to stay on track. And I felt very hopeless, but I thought, 5 boxes a day is 35 boxes. I mean, that's got to make a dent. And indeed, having done 15 boxes today, it really, really did. And that's sad. When you look at that top picture, I'd already taken 10 boxes out at that point. But you know what? Okay, 5 boxes a day. You do the math. In a year, that's going to be, 300 times 5. It's 1,500 boxes. I mean, surely I've got to be able to work on this. This is in the quaint tradition of other projects I developed in the pandemic, like Project Touch Up or Project One a Day, where I took one article of clothing I wasn't wearing and put it in a carton in my closet. And yes, I will be starting that again, I suspect, that I really want to drain the closet. But I just realized it's not good to have the garage trashed up like this. It's really not good. And so I am just going to do this little project of breaking down 5 boxes a day and hopefully stuffing them in the back of my Prius in the trunk. And every time I go into a town, I will be putting it in dumpsters, as well as filling our own trash can with the stuff as well. So that's Project G, and to be honest, I feel quite optimistic about it, which surprises me. The biggest issue was the heat in the garage, but that's why I'm only doing 5 at a time. And I'm taking scissors in, and I just cut the seams and break them down, and then there's a storage place near our washing machine for them temporarily. So that's exciting. So tomorrow I have to empty the storage into my car and then do 5 more, and hopefully just tootling along at 5 a day. So in the meantime, I went out into the garden, now that I have been really sick for about 5 days and unable to see the garden. And I was delighted to find, I'm calling it my green fingers section. You Brits will get it. First of all, there's a picture on the left of my spearmint patch. And what's remarkable there was about a third of it was blank in early July. So in the heat of the summer, I managed to get water-loving spearmint to thrive because we started watering all the plants that I put in, all the perennials that I put in. So I went out and I looked and I said, boy, that is the success of the summer, that it is extending over the roots of our wonderful late lamented hawthorn bush, which is what I wanted. I wanted to cover up Nathaniel's roots. And so that worked out well. The other triumph is Audrey 4. Those of you who used to follow my porch swing postings during the pandemic will remember me sitting in the corner of the porch on my swing. Very bottom right corner, you can see one strut of the swing. And I had this giant wisteria that covered the whole right side of the porch, but it never would go across the front. Well, my son cut it down, total misunderstanding, thought he was weaning for me, and left a little bit. And it has bounced back now in the last 2 years. And it's huge, as you can see. It's named after Audrey the man-eating plant in the musical Little Shop of Horrors. What's really interesting is this gave my husband a chance to repaint those rails, but also I've been rehandling Audrey, and I've been threading her long strands through the fence, which she refused to do in her Audrey 3 iteration. And I've also been watering her every day, as I've watered all the other plants to get them through the drought of the summer and the high heat. And Audrey has responded by going that direction instead of going upward. So I haven't been able to fill in the rail going up. You can see it in the right side of the picture. You can see the post going up. I'd like her to twine around that, but we haven't gotten to that. But boy, she's doing a great job going through the fence posts. So hopefully I will get to work more on that. I went out tonight and watered everybody for the first time in a week and found that the hummingbird mint, which is a distant relation of the Nepenthe mint family like the spearmint, the hummingbird mint is going fantastic. It is alive, it is well, it is growing bushy, so that's a win. But to my delight, I went out to the other side and saw that the milkweeds, 2 of the 3 milkweeds have come back despite the rodents eating their leaves. And I believe the 2 new trumpet vines have come back despite the rodents eating their leaves. Now, I haven't been watering them, neither has the beloved son, because he's going to school early. This may have saved their lives because I think the water pools around the plants were attracting the rodents. They were going there to drink in the heat. They could smell the water, and they were eating the leaves. But hopefully, we are now getting into the 90-degree weather. It won't be in the hundreds. We're through the worst of that. Hopefully, when the new milkweeds come in September, I will be able to get them in there and bedded down and happy for the winter. And we will get milkweed that can survive next year and will not give way to the rodent onslaught as much. So I'm very, very happy about that. But I have to say the hummingbird mint in the location it's in, that is a big winner. And I may add to that. I may put a few more in there with it. My seedlings, I was trying to get roots on the Sacred Datura and on the California buckwheat. Those did not work. I just cleared them out tonight. I did not have the strength or the time to tend to them, and they went the way of all flesh. But that's okay. We're working on it. Gloria, the morning glory, very dried out, but I am trying to water her back, and she usually bounces back pretty well. She may just be outgrowing her pot to a point where I have to think about transplanting her outdoors. I'm not sure how I feel about that because she doesn't take the drought all that well. She dries out very easily. So there we are. That's the Green Fingers report, and that's where all the plants are on the calendar. Well, this is my last week of working Saturday, or I should say last week was my last Saturday. I am no longer working Saturdays. What does this really mean? Because of my schedule shifts, I have relatively few patients this week. I'm only seeing 4 days of patients this week, 4 days of patients next week, and then on September 11th, I will be on my regular Monday through Friday schedule. This is important because the reason I think I got so sick was that I really needed a break from all the stress. It has been an extremely hard month for various things around the farm, and we are doing better. I am doing better, but I really needed time off, and I didn't take it because I'm saving time off for the end of the year for Romule, but also for the Evolution of Psychotherapy conference. So it is kind of nice because I've finally reached this haven of I will have a 4-day week followed by a 3-day weekend followed by another 4-day week. So I am getting a break. So that's what this week looks like. Tomorrow I only have 3 patients. After that I have like 5, 6, and 6, I think. So that's great. In the meantime, the Cognitive Fiber Retreat is rapidly approaching. Saturday, November 11th. I'm very excited. And the Evolution of Psychotherapy Conference is also approaching. That's the other thing I want vacation time for. That will be December 12th through 17th at the Anaheim Convention Center right on top of Disneyland. This is exciting because now that I have Saturdays off, I don't have to request as much time off for Evolution. Yay! So I am just so happy. And in the meantime, Minerva gets the last word. And Minerva says, when all else fails, just take a nap on the floor. Mom did it this week. It must work. No, well, if you have the right crocheted blankets, Minerva, it's not a bad thing. But you can see her there passed out on the floor in her way. She has a very characteristic way of sleeping, as you can see. She's very furry, so she overheats. So she stretches out her hind legs and her tail and her body, but she tucks her front legs under. I think that's her alley cat heritage, that she has to be ready to run if she needs to. I really do. So there's our Minerva telling us all how to be. And that, my friends, leads me back to Dr. Franklin's maxims of how we are all in a community. When we take care of each other, we are taking care of ourselves. When we take care of ourselves appropriately, we are taking care of others. It moves in a circle. So everybody, please, you know the drill. Oh, by the way, we are seeing COVID again in this region. That is becoming a bit of a problem. It's not huge. They're not closing things or requiring masks yet, but the numbers are up. Several patients on my caseload now have COVID. It is showing up again. I am just saying, if you're coming to CFR, you want to think about masking. I'm not saying we have to mask, okay? I don't know that. But the fact that COVID is rising, I would just say make sure you have some masks around because you might well need them. And remember the communal idea. If you feel, no, I'm young, I'm strong, I don't need a mask. Yes, but they're going to be older people. I'm one of them there at the time. Also, please get your flu shot. Please get all that stuff taken care of and come to us healthy. Okay? So on that happy note, please, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.